Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Haley Yates, UBA Manager of Strategic Solutions. On behalf of United Benefit Advisors and our Platinum Alliance Touchpoints, I welcome you to today's presentation in the UBA Employee Benefit webinar series. Today's topic is your communication strategy creating artificial intelligence? And our presenter today is Chip Abernathy. Chip draws on decades of experience to deliver turnkey communication solutions for employers. He builds deep, lasting relationships with benefit advisors by being there when it counts, from business development through to long-term client retention. Chip is constantly searching for and developing better ways to help employees understand, appreciate, and make wise use of their benefits. Chip, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Haley. Welcome. Glad everybody could join us today. Today, the presentation, as Haley mentioned, is titled, Is Your Communication Strategy Creating Artificial Intelligence? And if we stop for a second and we look at what artificial intelligence is, it's really the science of taking a machine and teaching it how to think and act and respond like a human being. And so we take a machine, we load it with algorithms, and then we start putting data in it, right, continuously. It's called machine learning. We're teaching it how to do different things, whatever it is. Maybe in the healthcare industry, there's a lot of artificial intelligence about reading scans. So we continuously load those with scans of what maybe a cancer looks like as opposed to scans without the cancer in it, and try to teach it to identify those and then show us. And then what that does is that obviously shortens time to read an x-ray in that case. But when it comes to employee benefits, sometimes we treat our employees like that. We take our employees and we load them full of information during a 2-week period called open enrollment, usually in a meeting. We hand them a bunch of information about their carriers, their benefits, et cetera. And we load that information in that period. And then throughout the year, we expect them to be able to recall that information like their chat GPT sometimes, right? But at the same time, they don't have the continuous upload of information throughout the year. So today, what we're going to talk about is what we've seen in high-performing companies and how they communicate to their employees. And when we've worked with thousands of companies over the year in some capacity, and we work with these high-performing organizations, they have a belief in that communication is non-negotiable. We're going to communicate and educate our employees about everything, whether it's organizational news, what's happening in departments, if it's employee benefits. And the way that they do this successfully is they take the time to create a strategy or a strategic plan that really helps guide and deliver an employee experience through education and communication. In this case, and we're going to talk about today, is benefit communication. And they typically do that using systems that are reliable in delivering information so that their resources, often in the case of benefits, which are limited, don't have to do things on a day-to-day basis to get that information out to employees. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk to you about some key takeaways. First and foremost, we're going to jump into why we feel benefit communication is non-negotiable based on some key areas. We're going to look at the impact of and how to create a communication strategy. And then we're going to look at what it looks like to really develop an employee experience, what it's like to deliver employee-focused education. And then we're going to talk about organizations with limited resources and the importance of trying to find or implement a turnkey solution or system to deliver that communication. And then once we've done all those things, what are some things that we can measure to see if we're successful? You know, it's a data-driven world right now. What are the things that we can get our hands on to understand whether or not we're going to be successful? And then as a bonus at the end, we're going to share what high-performing companies do from a budgetary standpoint that we've worked with, and then some other case studies on how people have used other sources to help pay for their communication. So with that, let's just get started. We're going to jump into why benefit communication is non-negotiable. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about value perception. In the world of benefits, we've been doing this a long time, and as we work with different size organizations, I'm going to pick a 100-life group. We know that in a 100-life group, just the cost of healthcare is typically going to be around $580 per employee-only plan per year or per month. So if you extrapolate that out, that's close to about $700,000 a year. By the time you implement a benefits program with all the other stuff in there, companies are typically spending between $850 and $1.2 million a year in that 100 life group range. Is it important that employees value that you get an ROI on your investment from your employees? Well, I'm going to share with you a study that we've been following for years. It came out originally in 2007 by Watson Wyatt. It's called the ROI of Communication Study. And really what it does is it compares a company on the left that has above average healthcare benefits versus a company on the right that has below average healthcare benefits. And what it shows us is that the value that an employee perceives in their benefit program is a direct reflection on how they communicate. So I could have great benefits like this company on the left, do a really poor job communicating those benefits, and the value perception or the way that I would respond to my benefits in a favorable manner, only 26% of those employees are going to view them favorably. Whereas if I'm competing with company B down the street, who does a great job communicating their below average healthcare benefits, 76 or 3 times the amount of employees are going to respond favorably to their benefit program. Which company is going to have a better chance of hiring and retaining talent, right? Getting people to be engaged in the process. So value perception is one of those indicators that would really show us that benefit communication is non-negotiable. Some other buzzwords that you hear a lot about are engagement. When you look at high-performing companies that do a good job communicating to their employees, their engagement goes up. And through the Gallup workplace study, it's also tied to an increase in profitability by organizations by up to 23%. And it's part of, what are we trying to do? We want employees to be engaged in our company, all across the board, not just benefits, but in everything that we do. And that's why you see that increase. Now, it's interesting, this next bullet point, productivity. And I'm talking specifically in this case about remote workers, because a lot of organizations around the country are dealing with this new phenomena of remote workers. And in the McKinsey report, it tied increased productivity with remote workers into effective communication, making people feel like they're part of the organization. And interestingly enough, not because I'm doing this presentation, but yesterday an article came out, if you want to research or do a Google on the Nike CEO and remote workers, he blamed remote workers on a decrease in product innovation on Monday in a series of articles from different sources. But it was interesting to read it because at the end of the day, the analysts that were writing this article talked about the lack of transparency and internal communication as one of the reasons that people were leaving their job. Innovation had dropped down because Nike actually brought workers back from remote work well before some of their competitors like OnCloud and Hoka and some of these other shoes. So it was interesting to see that pop out yesterday when I was getting ready to present on this. Some other key indicators are going to be things like recruiting and retaining key talent. What it shows is companies that do a great job communicating to their employees about a whole host of things, employees feel valuable, and those employees are 72% more likely to stay. There's another phenomena in the working world today where depends on the study, but 45 to 55% of employees are quietly quitting. And so it's important that we communicate to our employees about all kinds of things and keep them engaged in the process, make them feel valuable, and make them understand what's happening with the company. I have a whole litany of real world examples that I could share with you. I picked a couple that I like to talk about around participation utilization. In 2019, we had a client that we did some work with. We weren't really communicating their wellness program. They launched it right before COVID. The first year, they had about 24% participation. And as you forwarded into the COVID year, we were actually brought in, we put in some new tools to communicate around their wellness program. And everything was going great. COVID hit, so they canceled the wellness program. They re-implemented it in 21. That year, with effective communication, it doubled the participation up to 50%. And then by the time we got to year 3, which was 2022, they were at 73% of their employees went and got a physical, got blood work done, had to pass 4 criteria and get coaching if they didn't pass those. And 74% of their employees got a premium discount that year. They were named the 3rd healthiest place to work in their state. And it was a complete turnaround as far as participation and utilization of these tools and resources that school had invested in. And so we have a whole litany of things like that where we've seen increased Back in the day, it used to be, how do we educate people around generic drugs? That thing has kind of been whipped now, right? Most people know about generic drugs and it saves them money. And there's a whole host of other things that we can communicate and see some pretty quick results around. So we really believe, as well as high performing companies that we've worked with, that communication is really non-negotiable. Now, what is the next step if that's the case? Is time to build out a strategy. So how does that impact an organization? So when we look at putting a strategy in place, what are some of the key things that it impacts? First and foremost, every business has an overarching set of goals, things that they're trying to achieve. And then when it comes to benefits, we're trying to get our human resources to perform, be productive, to cut down on absenteeism, all of the different things, right? To stay healthy so they're more productive. And so a well thought out strategy is going to align with the corporate goals, with the benefit goals that we have for human resources, et cetera. And it's going to help you achieve the things that you're trying to achieve as an organization. The strategy also helps you clarify the messaging. What are the things that we want to educate our employees around? Is it preventive care because we have some claims that are out of whack? Is it utilizing tools? Is it that we're undergoing some cost cutting measures? So we've implemented a high deductible healthcare plan and an HSA, and we want people to move to that benefit plan. So clarifying your message and maximizing the effectiveness of your communication come into play when you have a strategy in place, because you have your goals, you put your strategy there, and it helps guide the communication along to achieve those goals. Not only does it provide direction for where you're going with your benefit programs and everything like that, but you also have to keep in mind, like I mentioned COVID earlier, in 2020, all of our clients that were using had a communication strategy in place. None of them finished that year with the exact same communication strategy that we started in January with. While it gives you direction, it also should give you the flexibility to change when things happen. Maybe there's a surprise claim that pops up from last quarter that you want to educate. We've seen that around ER claims, for example. One of the other things a strategy does is it helps you get the most optimal use of the resources. When I talk to clients, I usually ask them how many people are on their employee benefits staff or that are working within employee benefits. And while the number in articles and different statistics say usually 1 per 100 employees, I've seen it anywhere from, the other day I had a meeting with a 230 life group. I was meeting with a CFO, and I was meeting with their consulting firm, and his assistant was on vacation, climbing up to the base camp of Mount Everest. But it was him and this person managing 230 employees. And not only was he over the benefits, but he's also the CFO of the organization. And I worked with an 800 life group with 13 different locations. They have 2 main HR benefits people, and then they have other people in each location. That benefits is a very small portion of what they do. So we know that optimizing your resources and utilization is critical. And I think maybe the most important piece of this, when you implement a well thought out communication strategy, your organization becomes proactive. And in benefits, that can mean a huge difference in your claims because you're beating things to the punch, as opposed to finding out something happened and reacting after the fact. So being proactive as an organization can lead to great amount of success. Okay, so with that being said, knowing the impacts of this strategy, how do we do it, right? So it's really pretty straightforward. I have 4 steps here that it takes to build a communication strategy. The very first step is really just like if we're going through a benefit strategy at renewal, we're going to sit down and you're going to want to go through a discovery session. And in that discovery session, you're going to want to talk about the goals of the organization. Are there some big things that we're trying to achieve over the next couple of years? What are the goals of our benefit program? Right. And then we're going to go through and we're going to inventory all the benefits that you have. You're going to want to look at, the tools and resources you provide your employees. You're going to want to look at any big claim issues. Maybe there's some utilization issues. Maybe there's some things that you want employees to enroll in. And so you need to take that into account as well. We had a UBA firm right before COVID that the company, their client, wanted about 35 to 45% of their employees enroll in voluntary life. That was their number. And so we did some pre-enrollment communication around that. And I think they went from 18% to 33% first year. But the idea is that what are those things we really want to achieve? And so we can sit down and we can clarify our goals around those things and begin to craft our communication. The other thing is we want to understand our key stakeholders. Depends on the size of your organization. You may be using a management level to help communicate to employees about different things, depending on the setup of your company. But you're going to be talking about employees, right? What do we need to put in their hands so they can make good decisions? And then make a decision. Are we going to also communicate or give access to their dependents to information they need? Historically, 50 to 60% of enrollment decisions and utilization are handled by dependents when it comes to employee benefits. So keep in mind, think about who your stakeholders are and how we're going to communicate to them. And then the fun starts, right? How are we going to craft the messages that we want to put out? Are we going to do it internally? Are we going to outsource content? Do I have someone on staff that knows how to write? Do they understand what it looks like to write at the 7th, 8th grade level? Do I need to outsource it? Those are the kind of things when it comes to creating the messages that you need to think about. And I will tell you that in today's day and age, I get asked this all the time. It's kind of funny. I have a client who I like to kind of poke at because he's not big on technology. But he started asking me about AI, and I was like, well, maybe we just start communicating in general first before we jump into AI. But I would put a caution as it relates to employee communications around AI. You have to be careful using services like ChatGPT that are scouring the internet for information, that you don't run into any copyright infringement, because there are ways to track your content and things like that. So just that would be my one word of caution when it comes to craft messaging, but something to keep in mind. And then the other thing you want to do is identify what the channels that you're going to use to communicate to your employees and their dependents possibly. Does everybody have a company email, or do you have access to their email addresses if they don't have company email? Are you going to text? Do you have their cell phones, or do you need to collect their cell phones? Are you going to use Teams? What percentage of your population have Teams? Are you going to print stuff out, put it around the office? Identify the communication channels and build a plan accordingly. Then once you've done that, then you're going to develop your communication plan. So your monthly strategy, you're going to look at what is the cadence. Am I going to do 1, 2, 3 articles a month? How am I going to deliver them? Pick a date and time that they're going to go out. All of the little things that are going to be important to push out that communication. And then the last 2 things, first and foremost, once I have everything ready, then you launch it. So you execute on your plan and you start delivering communications. And then as you go along, you want to make sure you have the ability to measure what's going out. So whether it's through an intranet utilization, you have the ability to track who's opened emails, click-throughs on websites. You send a video and you can track the video utilization. Whatever it is, you want to be able to measure it. And then also take that next step and look at claims information, right? Do I have information if we're promoting preventive care? And in this case, maybe annual physicals. Do I see an increase in claims around annual physicals if I can get my hands on that information? If we're talking about diabetes compliance, do I see an influx of people buying insulin? That type of stuff. And then if you're communicating about things, but you see that things aren't changing, by measuring it, you'll know that, hey, we hit on this thing 2 or 3 times, the message isn't resonating. We need to adjust that message and come from a different angle, perhaps. So those are the things to think about when you're creating a communication strategy. Okay. This might be what a process looks like. This is a map of our process, just to share it with you. So you start with discovery. And this is for those that are like me, very visual. You have a discovery process. You go through all of that stuff, clarify your goals, figure out your audience, all of those things, craft your strategy. You figure out where you're going to get the content, how you're going to deliver it, and then you start pushing that messaging out with the intention of continuously, consistently delivering information to help inform and educate your employees and their dependents about the benefits that they have. And we're going to talk about this in just a second, but it's amazing how many people sometimes don't even know the benefits that are in their little portfolio of benefits that they have access to. And the idea behind all of this at the end of the day is we want to create good benefit consumers, or smart benefit consumers, so that they know how and are empowered to go find information on their own so they can do the self-service thing. And then when needed, they can engage in the benefits that they need to help their family. Okay. So this is a sample communication strategy, just to kind of give you an idea. You're going to want to have the months laid out. You're going to want to have, I don't have dates and times for each one of these because it's just a sample, but you might pick the first Tuesday of the month and the second or third Tuesday of the month. I would never communicate on a Monday or a Friday. People are getting back to work. They're leaving for work. They don't pay attention. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's kind of like media. And they roll out bad stories on Friday because nobody reads them. But you want to make sure that you have this laid out so you know what's going on and people know where you are throughout the year when you're communicating. Okay, so that's what that would look like. And then we're going to talk about, now that we talked about the strategy, I mentioned something, this employee experience, or what does employee focused mean? Currently, when we go into an organization, and I meet with companies every week, and we talk about that, I'll ask them, walk me through step by step your plan for educating your employees about their benefits and increasing the value perception of those benefits. And most companies, say between 100 and even up to a couple thousand, most of them don't have a plan in place. And so what ends up happening is we take an employee, and this employee comes to work for us, and we start giving them all of their benefits. They enroll in the benefits that they have. So all the way medical, dental, vision, what have you, through retirement. And then we tell them, hey, each one of these people, each one of these carriers, or you'll see it in your benefits guide, they have a website, they have a phone number, potentially, they might have an app you can download. And so the employee then has to go to 10, 12 different places to find information. And then not only that, but those folks are also going to be sending information to the employee. So the employee is responsible for trying to navigate this system. And on top of that, we also have open enrollment platforms. We have maybe a wellness platform. We have payroll that they're responsible for interacting with. And so the onus is on the employee to figure out everything. So what we want to do is we want to take the employee out of that. We want to pull them over here, and we want to create a place that's focused on the employee that makes it easier. So one place to find all of their benefits information. They don't have to open up a million documents just to find a copay. But it's one place to go to find that information. And then that solution would also be able to communicate or send communication out from the company to the employee, so that information around education and utilization and awareness, all of that reaches the employee. And it's a turnkey solution so that you're not having to spend too much time doing this, but it's easier on the employee instead of having to track down all of the different things that they have to do. All right, what happens when we do this? What happens when we create an enjoyable experience that makes it easier for the employees to find the information that they want? First and foremost, we see an increase in awareness. Employees are aware of the benefits that they have. They know that, hey, I have, maybe I have pet insurance and I want to enroll in that. So you'll see increased numbers, but they're aware of what they have. And then when they're aware of what they have, and you start teaching them how they work. So I have a high deductible healthcare plan with an HSA. I understand, because you've educated me, that this HSA has a triple tax advantage. So I'm funding it, my portion of it. I know how to utilize it when I go to the doctor's office or pick up a prescription or what have you. And it becomes this thing where I know how things work. I know how to best use my benefits. So the understanding of your benefit program increases. Employees become more engaged. Why are we rolling out a wellness program? Well, we're trying to improve your health. We're trying to save the organization money and control the claims. Well, when you are aware of what's going on, you understand the why behind it, so to speak, you're going to get more engagement. Make sense? The other piece of it here is improve utilization. What are some of the metrics that you're going to track, right? From a standpoint of maybe KPIs, if you want to call them that. What am I going to track? Are people utilizing the benefits appropriately? Am I going to urgent care when it's appropriate, the ER when I have chest pains? Am I calling telemedicine when I have the sniffles, what have you, right? So the utilization will start correcting itself as you educate employees. And then at the end of the day, if I'm an employee and I know about my benefits, I know how they work, I understand it, I'm using them the right way, I'm engaged in this process, you're going to see an increased level of appreciation for the company that they work for, which is really critical. Okay, so we've seen that time and time again, and anecdotally in stories around wellness programs and how it changed their lives. And you'll see it in statistics, like if you're doing an internal employee satisfaction survey, you'll see boosted SAT scores, right? Or you might see a reduction in turnover, or you might have measures in place to measure productivity. So all of these things lead to the key metrics, attracting and retaining key talent, improve productivity, improve profitability, employees who are happy to work there. So those are kind of the results that we've seen with organizations, both big and small, where they've done a great job communicating to their employees. All right. What I want to do now is we've talked about the employee experience, and most companies that we talk to about this, this is, I don't know, this is a couple years ago. I mentioned something during a first part of a conversation, and the lady's response was, "Hey, if I could do this myself, I wouldn't be talking to you." And so one of the things that we like to share with you guys is what it looks like to implement a turnkey solution and how it improves the chances that your communication is going to be successful. I'm going to share about 7 things here with you on that. One of the things I've seen recently, there's some new technology platforms out there that are being rolled out, and on one of the websites it said, you and your clients can push out communication within minutes. And sometimes what they don't take into account is all of the work that goes into creating content. It's how are you researching? Where are you going to pull the sources from? How do you write it? How long does it take it to edit it to get it down to 7th, 8th readability? How do I draft communication for texting, for email, for Teams, for a portal or intranet, that kind of stuff? So one of the reasons which recommended that you would try to find something that's going to be turnkey and easier for you to do is that you get to use other people's expertise. You get to find a company that you want to work with. They have a vast array of experience, what have you. You get to use that, and it becomes part of your team, just like you would be hiring a consultant on something else. It's going to save you an enormous amount of time typically, because you're not having to write content. You're not having to figure out how to load it into the system, and you're not having to remember to send it out. So there's a lot of time savings that comes with that. Resource allocation is another big one. How am I going to use my employees? Most of our clients don't have communication expertise on staff. Most of the firms we work with don't have communication expertise on staff. So how are we going to utilize those resources internally, which plays on the next one, which is consistency, to make sure things are going on and continue to go on throughout the year? And consistency is a big one. Back in the day, before texting and really before it was easy to send out emails, we would draft communication for clients, give them a strategy, hand deliver flyers and emails for them to send out to employees. And what would happen is we'd be measuring analytics and things, and maybe before one of our quarterly or biannual meetings, whatever we set up with them, we would notice that there was a drop in utilization in different things, in our portal use, what have you. And what invariably would happen is that the employee that was responsible for delivering these out to their employees also had a million other things going on. A fire would pop up. Oh, I forgot to do it last month. And then I haven't done it yet this month. So now we've gone 2 months without communication, and you literally could see a drop off in utilization. So finding a turnkey solution that you can load your content in, hit a button, and it's going to send it out automatically, streamlines the process and improves consistency, which leads to a better ROI for you and your strategy. The other thing that it can do is help you manage your branding. Building your benefits brand or your employer brand is critical. We want people to recognize that you're the one providing them with the benefit programs. Doesn't really matter. I mean, they use Blue Cross Blue Shield, but we don't really want to necessarily promote Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? We want to promote your company. So look at it from that standpoint of, when I send out a text or an email, can I put my company's information in there? When I put it on my intranet, should I, everything needs to be branded for the organization. So a turnkey solution should help you and should allow for you to brand everything for your organization. We mentioned time savings earlier. Typically, it's way more cost effective to implement some kind of turnkey solution that isn't your own, because to hire a writer, I can speak from experience, can cost low 6 figures in some cases to hire a great writer. And then on top of that, being able to, go through and build a technology platform or build out an intranet. You might be waiting for the IT department to do updates for you, which could take 2 or 3 weeks for a production load, those kinds of things. So it ends up being more, not only time, but cost effective for you. And then most importantly, it gives you the ability to take the results from that system that you can see, whether it's, visits to your intranet or click-throughs on emails or watched videos or what have you, tie it to your claims information and other data points that you have so that you can see those results. Okay. So that's one thing we would recommend, is to find a solution that takes the work off your desk and makes it easier for you to consistently deliver your communication strategy. So with that being said, what are some of the things that we should measure? So we live in a very data-driven world, obviously. I just went to a presentation a couple weeks ago about that. And it's incredible the amount of data that's out there. But when it comes to what we're doing with employee benefits, we just picked, I think it's 8 things on here that we want to kind of focus on today. But how we can measure those things and really drive our communication to achieve certain goals. So some of the things that some of our clients measure are things like open enrollment participation. We had a client years ago within UBA that had a corporate mandate come down for a division, that the division had carved out their benefits to a UBA firm. But the corporate office came in and said, hey, look, if you don't have 30% of your employees enrolled in the high deductible healthcare plan, after enrollment, we're pulling the benefits to corporate, you're firing your firm, and you're getting rid of all the technology tools that they're using. So we put together a communication strategy around the high deductible healthcare plan, the HSA, and all of the stuff helped from the employer because they really love they'd worked with their benefit firm for a long time. And we put together this strategy in combination with the HR benefits team at that company. So it was videos that they did, presentations, emails, pre-enrollment information about HSAs and high deductible healthcare plans. And it also happened to be a perfect audience for it. A lot of young single employees without a lot of healthcare issues. And they ended up getting about 67% of their employees enrolled in the high deductible healthcare plan. Now that doesn't always happen, but it was kind of a perfect storm, if you will. But those are some of the things that you can measure. What are we trying? What is our strategy around benefits? What are we trying to get people to enroll in and utilize? So the next one would be benefits utilization. I put a simple one up here. You know, are we getting the right amount of utilization and the right uses of the ER? Are people going to urgent care when it's appropriate? Are they using telemedicine? That's just one simple example. Are we measuring, you know, employee net promoter score? A lot of companies will talk about, hey, our net promoter score, and that's the clients that would recommend you to other people to buy your services. Well, why not do that for your employees? How are you measuring employee satisfaction? That's something to manage. One of the big issues for companies, depending on your size, is how to get claims information. If you're self-funded through a TPA, regardless of size, you're going to get more information. But claims cost management can play a huge role in the cost year over year of your benefits program. And I have some things listed up here: preventive care, cancer, hypertension. I'm going to give you an example of how preventive care education and promoting things can save you a lot of money in the benefits world. What you see on here is a chart of the median cost and overall cost of treatment for stage 1 through stage 4 breast cancer. You could use prostate cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and the graphs basically look the same. The dollar amounts are a little bit different. But if you're emphasizing preventive care, getting your age-appropriate screens, promoting Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, and you catch breast cancer in stage 1, first year cost, median cost is going to be, oops. Oh, no. Hold on here. I might have a problem with PowerPoint. Can y'all hear? Hold on just a second. I'm going to move this out of the way. Not sure what's going on with that. I hope you can still see my slides. Haley, can you still see my slide?
Yeah, they're still there.
Okay. But what you see in the first year is $11,000 median cost care for breast cancer. The first year median cost for stage 4 is $100,000. You look at year 2 through 4, and you see you have about $10,000 total cost in the next 3 years of treatment for stage 1. You catch it at stage 4, it's $180,000. Hold on here. Okay, I think things are back to, but it's not letting me. I'm sorry about this, guys. I don't know what just happened. Oh, there we go. And then stage 4 cancer, breast cancer in years 2 through 4, it's about $180,000. So not only are your costs going to go up, but the quality of life of your employee or their dependent is going to be terrible if you just take a second and focus on some of those things. It's going to impact the benefits that you provide your employees. And that's just one example. Hypertension, the average cost per employee goes up for benefits about $2,000 a year if they're taking medication for hypertension. Diabetes, if you have a population of diabetics that aren't managing their healthcare, that could ramp up your costs of your benefits. And while it may be a small percentage of the employee base, it could potentially be 40% of your total cost, all of the things that happen for those that aren't managing diabetes. So that's one of those things. And then the other things that you can measure are going to be things like engagement. Can you track utilization on your intranet or your portal or whatever you're using? Open rates on emails, click-throughs, videos, etc. How are people participating in the different programs and tools and resources that we provide, whether it's a wellness platform. What can we get from that? How do we measure that? Are we measuring claims buckets through that wellness program to understand the impact of communication? Are people utilizing the EAP when they're stressed out or for the other things that the EAP brings to the table? You can be measuring, understanding benefits through surveys, focus groups, et cetera, and then other measures that you might be tracking through retention and turnover, et cetera. Okay. So those are some of the things that we're going to, recommend that you measure. Not all of it's possible, just depending on the size of the organization and the data that you can get. But there are some things that you can track to see the effectiveness of your communication. All right. Let me get over here because my clicker is not working. My PowerPoint is it's frozen, I think. What I was going to talk about next, I'm going to talk about it. If the slide gets there, we'll go from there. But there are a couple of things when it comes to the cost of effective communication. First and foremost, when we've worked with high-performing companies that really find communication in general non-negotiable, and then when it comes to their benefits plan, very important. They typically will budget. Depends on the company, but I've seen anywhere from 1% to 2% of their overall benefit spend budgeted for employee communication. Typically, it's about 1.5%. The larger the organization, it may actually be below 1%, but it's not a big cost when it comes to. We're just flying through screens real quick. When it comes to the cost and paying for your communication strategy, the other ways that people have done it is one, they talk to their carriers about wellness dollars. They may be talking to them, like, hey, we have some wellness dollars. I have a client right now that probably about 70% of their communication is paid for by the carrier using wellness dollars. I have another client, UBA firm, that we did a huge project for, is about $60,000. Their carrier paid for 50% of it out of technology dollars because they weren't having to communicate to those employees. So those are some of the things from that standpoint on how to, talk to your carriers about wellness dollars, technology dollars, stop their communication. Can we use some of that money to do our own communication that's more relevant to our employees? And the other one is who, besides the organization, has a little skin in the game when it comes to employee benefits. It's the employee. A lot of our clients will share the cost of the communication with employees. If I have a deductible, which most companies do, if you look at the data, if I have a deductible, let's call it a $1,500 deductible, and I misuse my benefits one time and I go to the ER, well, my out-of-pocket max, my deductible is going to be met pretty quickly. But if I went to, because I was communicated to, and I went to urgent care and only spent $150, well, I have saved myself, potentially $1,000 or more dollars out of pocket by going versus going to the ER. So they have some skin in the game. So I would highly challenge you to look at how the employee contributes to the communication program as well. And then the other thing, everybody on this call is working with or part of a UBA firm. The UBA firms have access to a ton of tools, a ton of resources, vendors that provide them discounts for different things that they're doing. So don't be afraid to talk to your consultant and ask them about ways that they might help promote or pay for through some of their relationships with carriers and what have you, TPAs, get discounts through other strategic partners to help you promote and pay for the education for your employees. So I wanted to share those things with you. Y'all are very fortunate. You work with some of the best benefit firms in the country. I've been part of the UBA, I think, for almost 17 years now. And some of the best folks in the country are working on your behalf to try to help save money and provide great benefits to your employees. So don't be afraid to lean on them. And that's really all I have to say. Thanks for attending. Appreciate your time. And if there are questions, we can, Haley, feel free to ask. If not, we can zip on. And I can't get to the last slide right now. Let me see if I can, I don't know what happened to PowerPoint here, but let me see if I can get it to reopen. Hold on just a second, Haley. Okay. I'm going to force quit the presentation and restart it.
There are no questions that came in to Q&A, but if there is anybody that has any questions right now, feel free to type in that Q&A box, and we're happy to get those answered now while we have a couple minutes with Chip, or feel free to email if that's helpful at all, or you forget about it until we jump off. we're more than happy to answer any questions anybody has.
I'm going to zip to this last slide for you.
Thank you.
Not sure what happened with PowerPoint. It just decided it was tired for the day, I suppose. There we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chip, for your thought leadership and sharing your expertise. And thank you to all the UBA partner firm employees and their clients who joined us today. Our next webinar will be on June 18th, and the topic will be alternatives to fully insured plans to consider for cost savings. This will be presented by Lucent Health, who is a valued UBA alliance and offers UBA partner firms and their clients healthcare solutions with customized plans, data engineering, and superior care experiences. So to learn more, contact your UBA partner firm. Otherwise, again, thank you all for attending the UBA Employee Benefits webinar series, and we look forward to you joining us next month.
Thanks, guys.